And I would say maybe something more like, oh, you know what? I love cereal that is naturally colored. I like my fruits and vegetables to have bright colors and my cereal to look like corn or my cereal to look like wheat. I would just say it like that and maybe not delve into the minutia. You can look at the back of the package if that's what you want to do, but I feel like you are the parent and you get to choose what you bring into your home. That's totally legit. They're kids. And so they're attracted to the bright colors and the cartoon characters. Duh. Why did the marketers put those things on there?
Welcome, revolutionary mama, to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. I'm Ryan Watkin, educator, mom of 3, rebel at heart, and passionate soul on a mission to empower and inspire you. Here, we'll explore psychology, spirituality, parenthood, and the intersection where they all come together. We'll discover how challenges can be fertile soil for growth, and that even in the messy middle of motherhood, we can find magic in the mundane. Join me on my own personal journey as I talk to experts and share resources on education, creativity, self-care, family culture, and more. I believe we can change the world by starting at home in our own minds and hearts, and that when we do, we'll be passing down the most important legacy there is: healing. And so it is. Hello, welcome back to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast. So happy that you're here again. Today's interview is one of my favorite. And listen, it's so hard to say that because all these conversations that I have are just so good. And today's conversation just truly filled me up. I walked away from this conversation really feeling inspired, really having some great tools in my tool belt on how to talk to my kiddos about nutrition and nourishment and bodies and food. And this is something that really shouldn't be that complicated, but for so many of us is very complicated. And that's the reason that I'm sitting down today with Jessica Setnick. Jessica is the best kind of speaker, the one with the expertise and knowledge who can also make you laugh. And it's so true. She did make me laugh. Her dream world is one where no one is ashamed to talk about their eating quirks, and everyone who wants help can get it. Trained in anthropology, she brought a new perspective to the eating disorder nutrition field when she became a dietitian 25 years ago. Now she's retired from patient care, and she educates professional and community audiences about how we can do a better job addressing eating issues in our patients, our kids, and ourselves. This is an absolutely fantastic episode. Basically, spoiler alert, it all comes down to our relationship with eating and our bodies and how we model that for our children. So I talk a little bit about some of the things we do as a family to stay quote unquote healthy. And Jessica really gave her take on how to do those things a little bit better and what we're doing right. And some really, specific things that we can say and specific ways we can talk about food and our bodies and getting the nourishment that we need. So buckle up. This episode is so good. And if you're someone who eats food, which I hope is all of us here, this episode is for you because it is so universal. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did, and let's just jump in. Oh, and if this episode resonates with you and you feel super inspired like I did, shoot it over to a friend and make sure you're following along wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right.
Please note, the opinions and perspectives of guests on the Raising Wild Hearts podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Ryan Watkin or anyone associated with the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Jessica, welcome to the Raising Wild Hearts podcast.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about so much, and I'm so excited about our topic. We're going to be exploring the origin of eating disorders. We're going to be diving into what that means. We're going to be kind of talking a lot about many, many different topics. However, when I was researching you and your beautiful work that you do in the world, one of the first things that came up for me, because it's relevant in my life, is food as comfort. And what I was kind of reflecting on is we nurse our newborns, many of us, around the clock. You know, they cry and we nurse them to soothe them. And then we bring the endless snack bag for the toddlers and the little kids and the big kids. And then, we joke. And when I say we, I just mean like culture. We joke about chocolate and ice cream and Oreos if we're going through a breakup or hard time. And it's like this prevalence of, I think, kind of a misuse of food and nutrition and nourishment is really kind of like in the water. So I really want to start there at like just getting a really clear look of why are we using food as comfort, and when does that start to become a problem in your eyes?
Okay, so this may be different from everything you've heard and everything you're thinking, but actually it's really normal for food to be comfort when we're new, right? So food and comfort are linked, and it's linked in the sense of getting our needs met. We actually develop self-esteem from infant feeding. It's so interesting that you mentioned this because I think you're the first interviewer who's actually started that far back. Usually I have to pull people back to childhood. So it's fantastic that you said that. So imagine, like you said, nursing a baby, bottle feeding a baby, you're holding a baby, right? If the person who is feeding the baby is making eye contact and making silly noises and smiling, then that child doesn't really understand that they're a separate person. They sort of absorb the good feelings of the person who's caring for them, and they feel good. They feel like a good person. It's sort of like a mirror reflecting back, I'm good. Well, if the person who's feeding someone is, let's say, altered, let's say they're anxious or depressed, or let's say even worse, a baby's propped up with a bottle and a pillow and no one's even there, right? So absent or angry, the the infant learns, and this is pre-verbal, right? They're not thinking, they don't have words for anger or feelings. It's like they're looking in a broken mirror, but they don't realize that the broken reflection they see is just a mirror. They feel it feels like there's something wrong with me. And so that's how self-esteem develops, even non-verbally. And so if we are comforting a child in our arms, right? With our voice, with our body language, with our eye contact, while we nurse or feed them, we are therefore building their confidence that they get their needs met. And actually, we call that attachment, right? Secure attachment. And in nutrition, what results is a child knowing they're going to get their needs met so they don't have to sneak food or hide food or scream for food. And so it's actually important that we nourish kids when they need a snack, when we're in the grocery store so they don't have a meltdown, when we pick them up from school. We're not using food for comfort in the sense of, I'm sad, so I need food. We're using food for comfort in the sense of, I know that when I'm hungry, I will get my needs met. And so you can imagine how many kids there are who aren't getting their needs met, who aren't getting fed when they're hungry, whether it's because of food insecurity, not enough money to go around, whether they're not being nurtured appropriately by their caregivers, whether they don't have caregivers, right? So that's a lot of feelings of, I'm not going to get my needs met, and that's what leads to eating problems in a lot of cases. So actually feeding a child when they're hungry is not actually the problem. It's trying to solve something that's not food related with food. So if you clean your room, I'll give you a piece of candy. That's the kind of thing that I would say is comfort eating that's become a problem, as opposed to comforting hunger with food is actually very appropriate.
Okay, I'm obsessed with this answer. I love that this is kind of different than what I was expecting. And what I'm hearing you say is that there's this level of discernment, and even I would go as far to say intuition, that parents and caregivers need to really tune into when we are attempting to meet the needs of our kids, all the way down from newborns up to big kids. Hey, it's me, Ryan. So, something I do every single day to invest in my growth, besides connecting with the humans on this podcast, obviously, is reading. Reading is where it all started for me. I was 5 when I became obsessed with books, writing them, reading them, collecting them. I love how I can get inspired with new ideas and stories and ways to grow. That's why I ask all my guests what they're reading. And finally, you can check out all the book recommendations from the experts and authors on the show in one place at raisingwildhearts.com/books. There are some life changers in there like You Are the Placebo and a few hidden gems like Sacred Motherhood and Living, Loving, and Learning. So if you want to get your hands on your next great read, check out the full list by heading to raisingwildhearts.com/books. Okay, back to the show.
Absolutely. I love that you use the word intuition. I love the word discernment because children don't have discernment, right? We teach them red means stop, green means go. As adults, sometimes we go on red and we stop on green. But for kids, we just give them the rules, right? And so what we want to do over time is teach them discernment. So in the beginning, you feed a child when they're hungry, when they make those sucking sounds or faces, when they cry, we check to see if they want their bottle, that kind of thing. And so that's normal. Over time, as they grow older, that's when we start to use those discernment words. Is your tummy hungry? We can ask them, are you hungry? Have you had enough to eat? Does your tummy need more? And we can teach them other feelings feel empty. Like hungry feels empty, being bored feels empty, sometimes being sad feels empty, right? And so we can help teach them discernment. But people are trying to teach 3-year-olds about protein and carbs and fats and sugar. And that is not the kind of education that a 3-year-old needs. A 3-year-old can hear, is your tummy hungry? And say yes. A 3-year-old can hear, would you like grapes or watermelon? And make that choice. It's really important that we're giving age appropriate information because of exactly what you said. We're trying to build the intuition, then we can do discernment, then we can do education, but we're trying to do it all in the wrong order.
Wowza. And while you were talking, immediately what came up for me was for years, my brain would feel hungry, not my tummy, even as an adult. So this is like very recent that I'm exploring my own nourishment and needs being met, etc. And there is this sensation of I'm venturing to guess that I'm like seeking a dopamine hit.
Sure, maybe.
So it's
yeah.
my brain saying I'm hungry, but not even noticing like, is my tummy, I can say that I'm a big
and you
kid.
can,
Is my
to
tummy
solve that, all
hungry?
you have to do is ask yourself, I'm hungry for blank. And right, I'm hungry for connection. I'm hungry for a friend. I'm hungry for some rest. But we're not tuned into that. We haven't trained our intuition or our discernment to hear that. So the first step you can do is actually something very simple. It's very basic, and it is not meant to convince you you're not hungry. It's meant to actually check. And I call it the apple test. And I joke that your mom and my mom and everybody's mom made it up, but although it could be someone's dad or grandparent or caregiver. And all it is you just ask yourself, when you're not sure if you're emotionally hungry or fuel hungry, you just ask yourself, would I eat an apple right now? And we can do it right now. Like, would I eat an apple right now? Yeah, I'd eat an apple right now. So I'm going to go get something to eat after this. May not be an apple. We don't have apples in the house right now. But it's just that binary, am I hungry? Am I not hungry? And so it's, if you hate apples or if you love apples, maybe don't use apples. Maybe use carrot sticks or saltine crackers. I personally wouldn't use saltine crackers for this test because I won't eat saltine crackers unless I'm ravenous. If I'm at a restaurant like the Crab Shack and there's saltine crackers on the table and I'm eating them, I am way past hungry. So that is not a good tool for me. See what I'm saying? And if you made it the ice cream test, what? I eat ice cream all the time. It doesn't have anything to do with being hungry. So for me, apple is nice and bland. I would eat it if I was hungry. I would not jump over a moving car to get it if I wasn't hungry. So you use kind of a bland food. Apple fits for a lot of people. And the goal is not that you go eat an apple. It's just a mental exercise. And so once you know you are hungry, you get some fuel, turkey sandwich, whatever you want. If you notice you're not hungry, you can still eat. It's not against the law to eat when you're not hungry, but identify that that's what you're doing instead of sort of, I'm going to use finger quotes that no one can see, instead of lying or telling yourself the story, I'm hungry, tell yourself, I'm not hungry, I'm lonely, but I'm going to get that dopamine fix from food while I'm waiting for my XYZ to come out of the toaster. Let me think about who I could call that might be available to chat or something like that. So, in other words, you can do both. You can comfort with food and the other thing. The only problem is when you have nothing else and your only source of comfort is food. So, eating ice cream out of the container is such a cliche, right? It's in every rom-com, every sitcom. Eating ice cream out of the container after a breakup. Fine. Eat ice cream. Eat the whole pint. Eat the whole gallon, right? No big deal. It's not against the law, like I said, to eat for comfort. But the problem is if 9 years after the breakup, you're still eating a gallon of ice cream out of the container every Saturday night, it's not so much the food, although the food, it may be a problem. You may be eating too much ice cream. I grant you that. But the real issue is you're still suffering a breakup 9 years later, and you don't have either the coping skills or the social support or whatever it is to comfort the feelings. And that's what I mean by discernment. You can't tell a 3-year-old, are you having feelings or do you need, right? We have to say something like, let me give you a hug while I fix you a snack, right? We have to do both and then trust that that child knows if they got their needs met by the hug, they won't need the snack. If they need the snack, they were also hungry because we can have more than one feeling at a time. But it's too complicated for a 3-year-old to try to piece all that together. On the other hand, we grow up having been told things like, don't eat that because dinner's in 30 minutes, don't spoil your appetite. And so we have a lot of food baggage that we carry with us from previous generations. And that's why we have to untangle it as adults. We're trying to prevent that for our kids.
One of the things I notice too, sometimes with myself, sometimes in observation just out in my community, is that we have this tendency to shy away from feelings. When our kids are feeling feelings, we want to fix it.
Yeah.
We want to go, no, it's okay. And we want to either talk them out of it or give them a lollipop or bribe them or some sort of something. And so I find for me in my family, and honestly, starting with myself, to hold space for the feeling that is underneath what's going on, whether that be loneliness or sadness, or sometimes as deep as despair and grief, and these really almost taboo feelings that we weren't taught how to process or work through. So food is used as fixing a lot. And I think when you talk about a 3-year-old, that's so relevant for me because I have a 3-year-old and I look at him and sometimes I've been like, using a vitamin C lollipop as a transitionary tool to get him into the car. And I'm like, I know this isn't the quote unquote right thing, but this is simplifying my life right now. So it all comes down to like this awareness. It all comes down to this willingness to be aware of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then a step further, like non-judgment, like, because it's not going to work if we're going to walk around beating ourselves up all the time. So.
Right. No, that's true. And let me just let you off the hook for your lollipop to get to the car situation, right? I think that's very, what's the right word? Benign. I think that's pretty benign. It's more the pattern that you set, which is if your son sits down at the back door and says, I'm not getting in the car till you get me a lollipop, right? That's called emotional blackmail, right? So it's kind of, it's okay to whip those things out in a pinch. It's not you're not making your child earn all of his food by doing good tasks, right? So on a day when your child is throwing a temper tantrum, you still say it's time for dinner. So yes, occasionally it's a transactional situation, but that's not the theme.
Sure. So the frequency of it, the way
makes it different.
We're phrasing it, it's not like, get in the car, be a good boy, here's a lollipop for doing that. It's, here, have this lollipop, let's run to the car together and see who can get there faster. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. And even in those cases, I'm like, I know this isn't the best way, but sometimes, like you said, in a pinch, it is just necessary for the sanity of everyone, but mostly me.
Well, think of it this way. If you're potty training and you say, if you tinkle in the potty, you get an M. No one at 25 years old is still expecting an M when they tinkle in the potty. You know what I'm
Hopefully
saying?
not. Yeah, totally.
Right. Hopefully not. Well, that would say there was some kind of developmental issue there, right? That would say that something had gone terribly wrong. And so in the most cases, eventually you sort of the behavior sticks, but the food reward isn't necessarily the piece, right? And it's okay to regret. It's okay. I mean, I'm just thinking of a simple example of the 3-year-olds in my life. They're 3-year-old triplets in my life. And I picked them up from school, and for a few days in a row, we went to the car wash. And at the car wash, they give out lollipops. And after 3 days of that, their dad said, "No lollipops. I don't feel comfortable with them having hard candy in the car." And so I said, "Okay, great. Dads are, it's that absolutely yes." And so the next day when they got in the car and said, "Are we going to the car wash?" And I said, "No," they all threw tantrums, right? So if you can't tolerate your kids' feelings, you end up capitulating. But it's harder to say, and I agree with you, trying to drive home with 3 screaming kids in the car and saying, "I see that you're disappointed." It's hard to be disappointed. I wonder what we can look out the windows while we drive. And they're still screaming, and I'm doing the thing I always do when we drive home. "Oh, I see a digger. Is it yellow? Is it orange?" And eventually they stopped screaming, right? But if I capitulated and said, "All right, if they scream, we'll just go get lollipops at the car wash," there's all kinds of problems that result from that. Not necessarily lifelong eating problems, but the fact that I defied what their parents said, right? There's all kinds of problems. They learn that screaming gets you what you want, that kind of thing. And so it's really important that we sort of, like you said, make room for the feelings. And I'm just thinking of an example of a parent who brought their child to see me because they were really in that emotional blackmail situation, right? Where the child would just sit down on the floor of the grocery store and throw a screaming fit if the parent wouldn't buy what they wanted. And there are other solutions, right? Either you need to find someone to care for your child while you go to the grocery store, or you push a screaming child around the grocery store and just know that anyone there who's ever had or been around a child understands that there are children that are going to scream at the grocery store, and it's not because you're hurting them, it's because they are in a snit. Or in today's era, you get your groceries delivered, right? There's
Yes.
lots of ways around it besides solving that child's screaming fit with busting open a package of whatever it is they want right there in the store, because that's how the child learns to comfort their feelings with food rather than,
Yes.
"Yeah, you're having a feeling. I can tell you're having a feeling. I can tell you're mad at mommy. That's okay. I love you even when you're mad." It's hard for us because we have to tolerate the feeling, and we have to also be pretty, I'll use the therapy term, well resourced, right? We have to be rested in order to be that calm. We have to have had enough time to do the things we need to do in a day to be that calm. It's really tough to be that calm when a kid is pitching a fit, but that's how they learn that it's okay. And hopefully, it's not always a fit. Hopefully, sometimes it's just a little something. And we can say, "Yeah, I get that that's disappointing when your toy runs out of batteries and we don't have the replacement batteries. And next time I go to the store, I'm going to get the batteries. See, I'm going to write it on the shopping list right now." That's how kids learn that your feelings go up and they come down and you move on. But when we either tell a child they're wrong for having feelings, or we don't let them have the whole like up down process of emotions because we try to soothe them too fast, either of those paths both results in someone who isn't necessarily able to manage their feelings on their own.
Let's talk about walking up and down the grocery store. I think this is such a relevant example for all of us. I mean, amen and praise the good Lord for grocery delivery, because back in the day, I used to bring my 2 littles and it was a lot. And that was like not even screaming over, "I want this" or "I want that." It's just a lot to bring your kids to the grocery store while you're trying to focus. So, but still, there are cases where I find myself in the grocery store with 1 or more of my 3 children. And let's say we'll walk up and down the aisles and like just for fun's sake, let's talk about the way that we can talk about food as we're purchasing it that will set them up for a healthy relationship with food for lifelong, good habits. And because one of the things that I do is I read the boxes and not everybody does. Like I'll read the ingredients. Another thing I do is I'll let my kids pick out one fruit and one veggie. So like pick out one
It's
fruit and one
fantastic.
veggie. Yep. So they get to pick whatever they want. One time they picked this crazy, I don't even know what it was. Like it might have been a jackfruit. We didn't even ever end up getting to slicing the thing open. But anyway. And then of course we do go down like the snack aisles. And no, you're not quote unquote supposed to, linger in those middle aisles, but we do buy granola. We do buy, the best crackers we can find, all that. And I want to read the ingredients because I want to see what's in there. And I'll talk about, I know what it is, the cereal box aisle. So we'll walk up there. And now my big kids are 8 and 10 and they'll go, whoa. And they see all the colors and the characters and the flashy things. And Jello too was an example. It was like this red and blue Jello or something. And the verbiage that I've used in the past, and let's talk about a better way to do it, or if that's right, and any more you have to add to it. But I've said, well, they put chemicals in those to dye them those colors. Those don't really look like the colors that we see in the fruit and veggie aisle. So those aren't natural colors. They use dye in them. And let me read these ingredients. And I read the ingredients. And of course, it's like stuff that I can't even pronounce. And they go, ugh, and they're a little older, so they can grasp it logically. And so I just talk about it like that. I try to be super practical and I don't label that's bad or this is good. We just talk about it as it is or as I see it. So what am I missing there and what else can we add?
So I would encourage you to focus less on the ingredients for them, because what we're trying to prevent is, let's just say you go on vacation, and let's just say that there is, I don't know, corn pops is the cereal option. We would rather a kid eat that and fuel themselves than eat nothing. And so we don't want them to eat that and think, wow, I just ate a bowl full of chemicals, I'm a bad person, or I'm going to have cancer or something like that. And remember, kids are they make those direct correlations. They don't have the discernment. And again, I don't know how old your kids are. How old are your kids?
My older kids are 8 and 10, and then my baby is
8 and
3.
10. Oh, 8 and 10.
Yep.
You did say that.
Well,
Okay.
they're almost
So I
8
think,
and 10. Yeah.
yeah, I think even teenagers can take what you're kind of saying. And now, granted, you are talking about one incident and you raise your kids in a whole spectrum of activities and things like that. So I'm
Sure.
not saying that you are harming your kids, but you're asking how could you phrase things differently?
Yes.
And I would say maybe something more like, oh, you know what? I love cereal that is naturally colored. I like my fruits and vegetables to have bright colors and my cereal to look like corn or my cereal to look like wheat. I would just say it like that and maybe not delve into the minutia. You can look at the back of the package if that's what you want to do, but I feel like you are the parent and you get to choose what you bring into your home. That's totally legit. They're kids. And so they're attracted to the bright colors and the cartoon characters. Duh, why did the marketers put those things on there, right? So it's up to us. Same with buying, let's say, a store brand versus the brand with the colorful colors, etc. You get to choose that and you teach them, oh, you know what? It's the same one actually in this package. I prefer the ones that have less packaging or something like that. You sort of make it sort of like I prefer, so that, which you're allowed to do as the parent because you are the one, right? You can say, oh, you know what? I prefer this cranberry juice, whatever it is. My favorite are the green apples. You get to have your preferences, and that then sort of takes if I go to a friend's house and I eat that colorful cereal, I have to keep it a secret from mommy because she can't know that I ate chemicals.
Right. Okay, that's so helpful and practical. As you were talking, I was like, kids need just a simple explanation. I prefer the cereal that just looks like real corn, or that makes so much sense. I personally overcomplicate things to my children. Like they'll ask me a question and then I'll go like a paragraph and I'll see their eyes just glaze over. And it's just like one direct sentence is like all I need. And so this is
Oh my gosh, you are reminding me of this joke my dad used to tell. It's such a corny joke, and maybe you've heard about it, but basically it's like Johnny comes home and asks his dad, where did I come from? And the dad goes into this long explanation about when a man loves a woman, and then there's this little sperm and it swims, all this stuff. And Johnny opens his eyes really wide and says, "Oh, okay, because Bobby said he comes from California."
Exactly. Right. Because it's just, and they're learning. They don't need over complex answers. And so to be super straightforward is so helpful. That's exactly right. And let me tell you, when I was pregnant with my baby, and my girls were 4 and 6, I totally botched that conversation multiple times. And it's still an ongoing conversation that we have. But yeah, I love that. And for a long time in my house, we were, I don't want to say obsessed, but maybe that's the right word. But I was very focused on teaching them just organic versus conventional. Is it organic? And then I would notice them, in birthday parties or just out wherever, at grandma's house. Well, is it organic? And feeling a little hesitant to want to partake if it wasn't organic. And while I prefer organic and I do feel it's better to have glyphosate free everything, which is a whole nother topic, it's not necessarily avoidable. And I think this might be a good place for you to explain orthorexia. And I heard that term once a couple years ago, and I thought, I don't know. I heard it and it sparked my curiosity because I thought, ooh, I do that sometimes. Ooh, when we travel, I bring the whole kitchen minus the sink to avoid the having to eat out. And, while that can be helpful, it's not practical. Like to have 3 kids and need to spend 8 hours packing food for a trip. And so
And it also doesn't teach them how to manage when they go on a road trip, let's say in college or something like that.
Which is a practical thing that they need to learn. So yeah, let's dip our toes into what orthorexia means and strategies to prevent that or even notice it in ourselves.
Okay. So orthorexia just means right eating, and it's considered an eating disorder. But like all eating disorders, there's levels, right? So there might be orthorexic tendencies that don't really rise to the level of someone is malnourished and needs hospitalization. But the idea is that someone is preoccupied with the purity or cleanness or correctness of their food. And so I think that's really perceptive that you clicked with that when you heard about that. And so the question is not, do I care that my food is clean? Like if you drop your apple on the floor, please wash it. That everybody wants their food to be clean, but it's more like, am I preoccupied as I'm eating or as I'm preparing food? And as a dietitian, let me tell you, it's really easy to do because we learn all about food safety and all the contaminants, and we learn all about listeria and la 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 la, on and on and on, right? And so it can be really easy to become, I'll call it germophobic, right? Or something like that. And so we need to not be, my gosh, I'm thinking of COVID when I stood on my doorstep with my delivered food, Cloroxing it, right? With the Clorox spray. We didn't know. It was so easy to get caught up in that stuff because we didn't know. So it's easy to do, but what's very clear is it's very closely linked with anxiety. And so, right, because we're all anxious about COVID, so we all became preoccupied with what we're eating. It's easy-ish for a lot of people to let that go now that we're not in that situation. But some people, those kind of things linger and stick. And if you have a sticky brain, which is what anxiety is, right? It's basically repetitive, intrusive thoughts. And so we try to do a behavior to solve our anxiety. So if I'm feeling anxious, for example, about my husband's upcoming physical, I can sit and look at his plate and say, if he would just eat one piece of broccoli, if he would just eat one piece of broccoli, he'll be okay. It's really easy to do that with kids too. But the key is that's about our anxiety. That's not about the food. And kids pick up on that really easily. So for example, I'm thinking after a talk I gave to the community, a parent came up to me afterward and said, my husband got diagnosed with high cholesterol, so we're changing our eating in the family. We're starting to have more salads. And my 5-year-old was in the tub the other day and asked me, Mommy, do I need to have more salads so I don't die? And she said, so what do you think? Should we have more salads? And I said, this is not a question about salads. I wish it were. But it sounds like your 5-year-old has sort of picked up on things that are going on and has sort of taken 2 plus 2 and come up with 22, and it seems right, but what you really need to do, I would encourage you to look under that and say, what are you worrying about, sweetie? Because I think your child is asking you if daddy's going to die. And so let's not make it about food when it's about something else. But it's so easy to do because who wants to talk to their 5-year-old about death? I'd rather just make more salad, right? So that's the kind of thing that I would encourage you to self-reflect on, is when you are packing up all that stuff to go on vacation, what is it that you're afraid of? Are you afraid that you're going to run out of food? Are you afraid of the kind of unplanned things that happen on trips that you can't control? Did you recently hear about a terrible car crash that a family was involved in, right? What kind of things might be making you anxious that might be flinging out onto food? Do you have a history of cancer in your family? Are you preoccupied with your children not getting cancer? These are all normal things to worry about, but I can tell you that packing up 8 hours of food to go on vacation doesn't unfortunately protect you from traffic accidents, right? Like an airbag would. So that's the thing. It's sort of a misplaced anxiety onto food and sort of a feeling of, if I control these things, then everything will turn out okay. I'm not saying that's what's going on with you, but you're sort of starting to dip in. So I'm just giving you some suggestions of what it might be, the kind of thing to think about, what might be going on that may be resulting in that anxiety that propels you to pack all your own food.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer you real time and just try and explore it. I'm going to preface it with, just by nature, I've gotten so much more relaxed. I think the third kid really helped me just like catapult into like a less control freak version of myself, because there are things that I just need to let go. And so this version of me who would pack like the 8 hours ridiculous amount of food for the entire road trip was probably a handful, like 4 or 5 plus years ago, right? So, and I would venture to say, and I never really explored it like that at the time, I would venture to say that it had something to do with having a sense of control and feeling safe. Like, if I pack all this food, then I will feel safe. Then my kids will have everything they need. Then the second anyone needs anything, I will have all the needs covered and I will be the super mom. And I want to tell everybody how great I am because I did this and I'm so self-sacrificing and I stayed up all night to do this. And so I believe it's multifaceted, but those are the first things that just come to mind right now.
That's amazing insight. I hear you describing perfectionism. And perfectionism isn't, I don't think, what a lot of people think it is. It's not about trying to be perfect. Perfectionism is about trying to control. And I read Martha Beck says the perfectionist credo is, if I do everything right, everything will turn out right, I'll be happy, and everyone will like me. And that is exactly what I heard you say. And the
like
truth
on the
is,
verge
there's
of tears. It's so true. That's you. Yes. Yes.
and so the antidote to perfectionism, right? Or well, let's follow the whole thought through. If perfectionism says if I do everything right, then everyone will be happy, everything will turn out, and everyone will like me. Then what that means is if everyone doesn't like you, if something goes wrong, if everyone's not happy, you blame yourself. And so in a weird way, blaming yourself for something going wrong actually feels better than admitting you had no control over something going wrong. Because we don't like to live in a world where we actually have no control and things can go wrong. So there's 2 pieces that are the antidote. One is, and this is a motto I have used many times in my own life and shared with many, many, many clients, and I will share it with you too. And by the way, it's very gendered because I identify as female, so anyone listening can change it to their own gender. I am a grown, competent woman. I've handled everything that happened so far, and I will handle whatever comes next. Now, handling it might mean laying down on my bed and throwing a tantrum, but I will handle it. And why that's the antidote to perfectionism is because the perfectionist in us, and you just said it so perfectly, you want to anticipate every situation that could happen and pre-plan your response to each of those situations. And you know what? The things that we worry about are almost never the things that actually happened. Did anyone worry about COVID? No, we were worried about all kinds of different things. And the terrible thing that happened was something we could never have imagined. And that applies to basically every terrible thing that happens. It's not the thing that we prevented or predicted or, we're prepared for. So you can't prepare for everything. You have to be able to say, I can't predict everything that will happen, but I will use the skills that have gotten me through till now. I will figure out, how to feed my kids at a Waffle House if that's the only place for miles. And I'm not against packing snacks. Please do not misunderstand. The time that we got diverted and had to fly over El Paso for an hour on our way to Dallas because the weather was bad in Dallas, believe me, I thought there was going to be a riot on the plane. But my family, who always makes fun of me for packing snacks, was well nourished. Right? So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you can plan for things, but things will happen, and you have to know that you will be able to handle it. And like I said, handling it might mean taking 5 minutes to go cry in the bathroom, but you eventually will rise to the challenge. I believe in you. The second antidote to perfectionism is the word regret. Instead of feeling guilty, ashamed, like a failure, we just translate all of that into regret. And I'll give you an example that is not food related. I went snorkeling in Bali. This is such a random story, but it really crystallized it for me. So I think it will for you too. Snorkeling, applied sunscreen just like I'm supposed to, but at the end of the day, my back was fully sunburned, right? That's the part of you that is aimed up at the sky, right, when you're snorkeling. Okay. So I had this thought of like, oh my God, I know better. Now I'm going to have peeling, flaky back and probably melanoma. And I can't believe I didn't think to reapply halfway through the day. Like, of course, you can't expect your sunscreen to just last for 12 hours. Like, ridiculous. And that moment, I used that tactic that I use with my clients, right? And I said, what if I regret this? Instead of being so mad at myself and so ashamed of my stupidity, what if I just said, I regret that I didn't apply sunscreen a second time after lunch? Because that shame and blame and that emotional state doesn't allow you to think clearly. It doesn't allow you to problem solve, and it doesn't allow you to do things better, differently the next time because you're a failure. On the other hand, if you regret it, I regret that I didn't reapply sunscreen. But next time, right, it opens the door. Next time I'll set an alarm on my phone. Next time I'll ask my husband to help me remember. Next time I'll put the sunscreen in with my picnic lunch so that when I get lunch, the sunscreen will be right there reminding me. So regret allows you the grace to have not even made a mistake, but just been imperfect, humanly imperfect, perfectly inhuman, perfectly human, whichever, and plan ahead for next time. So if I had been on that plane to El Paso, and by the way, I'm sure the reason I brought snacks was because last time I was on a plane that had to circle, I had no snacks, right? So you regret that you didn't have snacks. It doesn't make you a bad parent. You just regret it, and then you do it differently next time. And so you've now got two antidotes for your perfectionism. The idea that unanticipated things will happen, and yet you're a competent grown adult and you will handle them. And then regret. You're allowed to regret and say, I wish I would have blank, and now I know what I'm going to do next time.
So good, Jessica. And I think everybody listening, and myself included, is like, who knew that all of this was like wrapped up into food? Like, it's just food. We eat a few times a day, but it's so deep. Like, the depths of it is wild. Like, why is that? Because we have to eat to survive, because it is a pleasurable act. But like, why is it so
both of those things
deep?
And the fact that food is a metaphor, right? Yeah. Food is a metaphor for so many things. The way we treat food can be a metaphor for the way we have relationships with others. Food is the first mood-altering substance any of us are exposed to, and we rarely think of food as a mood-altering substance. But anyone who's gotten hangry and wants a divorce and then has a snack and loves their spouse again knows food, right? We're all raising our hands. Food is a mood-altering chemical. The end. Food is a mood-altering chemical. And it's the first one anyone is exposed to. So we learn it's comforting, it's soothing, food is love. And that's not even if you were raised in a vacuum, you would know that. But if you then are exposed to people who were raised by people who were in food insecure situations where literally, I mean, this is the extreme of the extreme, but it makes sense when you think about what people have been through. But I'm thinking of situations where you hear about people who are impoverished or refugee situations or in the Holocaust or in a food rationing situation where they're literally like sharing one piece of bread among four people, right? If someone has been through that, food is love. You share your food with the people you love, right? You do not waste food. Like there are so many things that people have been through that were related to food, and then they pass it on to us, but unfortunately, it doesn't apply in our situation. And yet we think of it as these are the food rules. And I do not like to throw away food. I'll be the first one to tell you, not a fan. I would prefer that we have much less food waste in every area of our lives. But at the point where you have let something sit in your fridge until it is moldy, please don't eat it. We need to throw that away. And it's really hard. And I'm thinking of a nutrition teacher back in college who said she would bring a box of stale or keep a box of stale Oreos in her desk drawer. And when people said they couldn't throw away food, she'd bring an Oreo and she wouldn't tell them it was stale. She would just like rub it in her hair and be like, "Would you throw it away now?" Or she'd rub it on the bottom of her shoe. "Would you throw it away now?" Right? Because it's so hard to throw away food. And so that's the kind of thing that we have to use discernment about instead of just taking sort of the information that was given to us and doesn't apply to our situation. It's really tough. It's really tough. But that's why. That's why food is so tied up in things, because it's tied up in how we were raised. It's tied up in the fact that food is comforting to our body chemicals. There's just so much. There's so much. And PS, there's also a profit motive, right? There's also corporations that are trying to get us to eat more food and spend more money on food. I mean, anyone who can do math can see that you can buy the big thing of goldfish for a certain amount, or you can spend more on smaller amounts of goldfish because they're in individual bags. But sometimes the individual bags are a lot more convenient. So you choose, right? But there's so many factors bombarding us. So yes, it's not surprising that we are confused, that we mix up our food and feelings, and being conscious of it. I think you said that very early on in our conversation. Being conscious of it is really the most important first step, because everything anything that is not conscious, we just keep doing without even knowing we're doing it sometimes or why.
Yeah. Food is the first mood altering substance we are exposed to. I know that, like somewhere deep down there, I knew that, but you saying it out loud just fucking blew my mind. Like, I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. And I think about my kids and I look at my kids and and it's, God, I don't even know what like the question is here, but like, how do we train them, God, for lack of a better word, to really tune into their bodies and to not let the food take over those parts of the brain that naturally they just want to, right? How do we like help our kids navigate that really early on?
By fixing ourselves.
No, no, no. It can't be that, Jessica. Anything but, man. Once again,
That's
here
the
we go,
way.
folks. Yeah, ma'am.
That's the
Well,
way. That's the way. By stepping out of it and saying, "I trust you." When they say, "Should I have snack or should I wait to dinner?" You say, "Well, I trust you. What do you think?" Or, "Want to experiment? Why don't you try having half an apple and see if you're still hungry for dinner?" It wouldn't that have been nice if someone had said that to us when we said, "I'm hungry," and they said, "Don't eat now, it's 30 minutes till dinner." What if someone instead said, "That's great timing because dinner's almost ready,"
yes,
right?
yes.
Wouldn't that have been different if someone had said, "Your body clock is right on the money," and celebrated that instead of making us feel like, "Oh, there's something wrong with me because I'm hungry 30 minutes before dinner."
Almost every night of my life. I remember that. I mean, so I'd have to hold out and hold out and hold out. And then when you get to dinner as a kid, if it's something that's like looks a little funny or is like a little
Yep.
burnt or like all those things, you then maybe you don't eat as much as you need, or then, like, ugh, it's so tricky. But yes, I remember that. And I love saying that sentence to our kids. And I say this to my kids so much about everything when they ask me questions all the time. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I'm not, and I've even said to them regarding food and nourishment. Nourish is a word that we use a lot in my family. Are you nourished? Are you feeling nourished? Is your body feeling, did you get enough? Like, what's your body telling you? Putting it back on them. I just love it. And what a gift for our kids and the next generation, because that's how they learn. But unfortunately, we have to look at our side of the street too, because I can say that till I'm blue in the face to my kids. And I still have habits and things that need to be healed. Just that simple before dinner thing is huge.
Remember the word regret. You can use that with your kids. You can say, you know what? I'm so glad you said that because I just realized I'm a little bit hungry too. And I regret that I didn't clue into that. So I'm going to put this bowl of grapes right here and let's nibble on it while I finish dinner. You can share with them that you're imperfect and how you're learning.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's so deeply healing for me. I am such a recovering perfectionist, and you hit the nail like right on the head when you gathered that from my on the fly explanation of why I pack the entire kitchen when we travel. So, this conversation has been an absolute joy. You are a gift. The work you're doing in the world is so important, and I feel so grateful that we have connected.
Well, thank you. I'm going to send you a copy of my workbook so that you can kind of keep going. And we could put the link in the show notes so that anyone who's listening that wants to kind of do some inner work can get a copy of the workbook too.
Please hop on that link. I will put it down below. Easy peasy. Click on it. Get the copy. If this conversation struck a chord with you like it did with me, for sure. In addition to that, where else can we find you, Jessica, and follow the work you're doing?
Sure. So my website is jessicasetnick.com. It's just my name. And if you hover there for 5 seconds, you'll get a pop-up and you can join my newsletter. There's tons of information there for professionals, information for parents, all kinds of things, blogs, everything there. Probably somewhere tells where I'm speaking. And then if something that I've talked about sounds like it would be a good fit for your group, that's also the place where you can contact me and we can talk about me coming to your area either on a webinar or in person. I would love to talk about this more. I love to talk about it if you can't tell.
I can totally tell the passion that you have for your work is absolutely palpable. And I'm just so profoundly excited that this is the work you're doing. Like, this conversation is such a gem. And to have practitioners and coaches and consultants and all the different things who are truly living out their purpose, who are truly in alignment with serving others and making the world a better place, there's like no bigger deal to me than that. So thank you for walking the talk, because you're doing it. It shows. Now I'm going to ask you the 3 questions I ask everybody at the end of the interview.
Okay.
Yep. And the first one is, what's bringing you joy today?
The triplets. Today's my day to pick up the triplets from school. I can't wait.
Triplet 3-year-olds. I have a vision of what that is. And it's very active and loud, and it's 3
It is,
cool
but
age.
you know what? The best part is that I didn't have any babies of my own. I married stepkids, and I love my step baby Peyton. She was 5 when I met her, but I've never had the experience of like potty training and things like that. But my cousin, who's like my sister, had these triplets at age 47 during COVID. And so I have been involved in their lives from day one in the NICU, and they are it's like the treat of my menopausal era.
What a gift. Oh my gosh. That's going to keep you active too. And that's going to keep you young and nimble and on your feet. I love it. And let's see the next question. I'm flustered thinking about triplet 3-year-olds. Okay. The next question I have for you is, what, if anything, are you reading right now?
Oh my gosh, I just finished 2 books that are so good. I finished James and I finished By Any Other Name. Everyone, like, stop what you're doing, download, purchase, whatever you do for books. They were both so good. Like, stay up at night to finish.
Fiction?
Both fiction, yeah.
Okay. So I'm
kind of historical fiction, not like mysteries or crime or anything, but historical fiction. So you learn. That's the cool thing, is you feel like you're learning while you're reading. Why couldn't they have taught us history in school like this? It would have been so much better.
Seriously, that is Like the other day, my husband asked me a question about history, and I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I couldn't even venture to guess. But yeah, that's awesome. I always need new fiction reads because I'm an obsessive nonfiction reader. I
Oh
will
yeah,
put those on my list. So
James,
thank you.
James, and by any other name.
I wrote them down. All right, cool. And then the last question I have for you, Jessica, is who or what has taught you the most?
My gosh. Well, I think it's a tie between my mom and therapy. My mom is 82 and she's a tough broad, okay? She grew up in New York. She was raised by a tough broad. And yet, when I went to therapy and said I wanted my relationship to her to be different, she did not say, go fuck yourself or how ungrateful you are. She said, wow, I'm so glad you told me because I could never imagine having the courage to have this conversation with my mom. And so, my mom, when I was 30, so she would have been 50, she was willing and open to change the way she does things. And I'm so grateful that we have both lived long enough to be adults together. And so the fact that she's been willing to continue to change, when I say, you come in and you bring this energy into the room and it's great, but it would maybe be better for the kids if you came in and kind of looked around and saw what's going on and blended in a little bit before you just start on your own path. And she can do that. Like that to me is, I love watching her now interact with the kids, with me. We have such a good relationship. So it's therapy that got me the courage to have those conversations. And then the fact that my mom has the willingness to say, basically, it doesn't have to be my way anymore. I'm willing to learn from you. I mean, I aspire to be her, like her. I am like her. She's the most generous, kind, giving. She'll give you the shirt off her back. I love her so much.
That is so beautiful. That is no small thing. And I am so inspired by you and that answer and
Thank
pretty
you.
much every word you've spoken in this podcast.
Well, you
So
know
thank
what
you
they
so much.
say. You know you've been a successful parent if your kids can afford their own therapy.
I like that. Did you hear that, Mom? Did you hear that? You won because I'm doing it. I love it. Thank you so much again for being here. This was phenomenal. Hi again, friend. If you're listening to this, you made it to the end of a Raising Wild Hearts episode. Yay! Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you can hear more amazing conversations just like this one. And here's the deal. If you made it this far, go ahead and hop down on your podcast app and rate and review the show. Your words and 5 stars truly mean the world to me. Thank you for your support of the show. Thank you for showing up and listening week after week. I will be dropping new episodes every Monday, so tune in then, and I will talk to you soon.